I've said and I've written this, there are four Black Americas. And other writers have come up with similar things. They recognize the divisions too. But there's four Black Americas, and then if you break down each one of those Black Americas, there's several subcultures in each. Now, just real quick, because I know somebody's going to be curious, but I'm not going to spend like a whole bunch of time on this. The four Black Americas that I identify is one is what I call upper class Black America, and that's like that quote unquote Black elite, the kind talked about in Lawrence Otis Graham's book Our Kind of People. That's that old black money. And for the most part, though, they stay to themselves. That's why I kind of separate them. You really don't hear about them, except only time you hear anything about them is when people talk about the boule, you know, or like some, the upper echelons of black fraternities and stuff. But they in their own world, got their own modes of doing things. The second Black America is what I call mainstream Black America. And that's the one everybody, that's where everybody's basically doing their thing. Basically hardworking people. The main religion in mainstream Black America is the Black church. In fact, you would say that's the dominant feature. Even if someone doesn't go to, a Christian church, people kind of going around that. And then there's underclass Black America. That's the one we see too much of on TV. Ironically, it's probably one of the, if not the smallest, like the second smallest Black American grouping, but yet it's the one that gets the most attention. That's the one you got, whole video networks dedicated to, and unfortunately, too many people think that represents it. But when I talk about underclass Black America, that's that like, basically Black trash America. That's that type, people engaged in like criminal and deviant activity as a way of life. We talking like welfare fraud, shoplifting as a business, carjacking. Just they just living that criminal lifestyle, and but it's very small. It's more about survival. Even if somebody's working a regular job, it's more about survival, and it's also underscored by poverty. Most people there are not going to come out. And then there's what I call alternative Black America, and the major difference between the alternatives and the other three is indeed religion. The other dominant religion in the other ones, even in underclass Black America, is Christianity, while in alternative Black America, the religions will tend to be like the black versions of Islam, um, comedic paths, or what people derisively call the hoteps, and maybe even strands of traditional African religion. Also, schools of thought such as Pan Africanism, Afrocentrism, Black nationalism are in there. And basically, it's a totally different vibe. Now,